Okay, we are now live. Good evening. Welcome to the Parks and the Planning and Development Committee. I'm used to being Parks and Recs, right? Planning and Development Committee. Davita Russell is chair. Member Tony Kuda, president.
Present.
President Kuda, present. And Councilman Cobb has COVID and won't be able to join us. So we're here today to have our second public hearing around the dog park, and based on the request of our residents. Before we start, let me give a recap on how we got here. On December 4th, 2023, I presented a dog park ordinance, was presented to council based on the outpour from the community wanting a dog park in Cleveland Heights. After presenting this ordinance to council, the law director informed me that there were some extra steps that I needed to do to move the legislation forward. And we put together a comprehensive list of tasks that I needed to do. Some, just to read a few, were to look for a location for a dog park, see how large we wanted a dog park, the impact around the surroundings and properties and residents for a dog park, city property, if we can put it where the city-owned property, or would we have to purchase property for it, project maintenance and upkeep and costs, the development of rules and regulations, finding a designer to put together some numbers and cost around the dog park as well. So director of the Parks and Recs at the time and I did go out and look for different spaces within Cleveland Heights to find out what would be a good location to have a park, a dog park, but nothing is finalized. But we did look at a few that we thought would be very interesting and comparable to have a dog park, which was Cumberland Park. We looked at a couple of other various avenues, as far as the dog park, as far as Denison Park and other areas like that. After that, in going through that, we actually found an analysis for costs around the dog park, and then we had to put together a slide. And this is the slide that you will see here to my left, and I'm just going to go through it very quickly just to show you what the director and myself came up at the time to present to the public. And this is pertaining to the Cleveland Heights Dog Park proposal. This are the current conditions and the areas for the dog park and owners and the interaction, the new ordinance allowing dogs in the parks, and these are different things we would have to do. A beautiful picture of the dog. And cost breakdown for fencing, water, play features, landscaping, and construction. And so we came up with $170,000. Okay, these are additional features for the dog park, which are benches and tables and way stations and signage for rules. The dog park rules, and these are some of them listed. No dogs without the owner, clean up after your dog, so on. Okay, and these are pictures of the amenities that we were looking to put into the dog park. And the next steps was the community feedback. So we did on May 29th, 2024, we end up having a public hearing. And we had quite a few residents here who definitely supports the dog park, as well as council. We actually talked to council, asked for their feedback. There was none given. And so we proceeded forward to have a public hearing. The reason why we're having a second public hearing is because through the first public hearing, some of the residents had concerns regarding environmental safety around dogs and our residents. So we decided to schedule this public hearing, And I went around and I talked to the mayor of Bracknell. I talked to Beechwood. I've also talked to South Euclid, and I bugged the daylights out of Dr. Scott, who is a veterinarian here in Cleveland Heights, to also give us input on the health environment around having a dog park. So I'm going to move on with our agenda, and I'm going to bring forward, and do you all mind if we use just first names, or do you want first and last names or titles? First names? Okay, well, I'm going to bring forward Barbara. Would you step to the mic, please? Barbara was a former council person in in Beechwood, who actually brought the ideal and legislation forward for this dog park in Beechwood. So you have the floor.
Sure. So I was Beechwood council person for 8 years, and one of the benefits of being a new council person is when you come to the city, you're able to come up with fresh ideas and think about things that maybe council in the city hasn't thought about. So one of the first things I thought about kind of rose from two of my passions. One is passion for dogs. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm a dog lover. But secondly, and in some ways more importantly, Beechwood, if you're not familiar with it, is a relatively large city, not as large as Cleveland Heights. But when you're a dog owner, you realize that you get to know the other dog owners because you walk your dog in your neighborhood for the most part. Mm-hmm. Similarly to like when you have young children, you take your kids out for walks, you get to know the other parents through, walking in your neighborhood. Yes. But I realized people in my neighborhood, and I knew all the dog owners and all the dogs, didn't know the dog owners and the dogs in the other part of Beechwood. We were somewhat segregated that way. So really the idea behind the dog park was as a way to get the community together from the different parts of the city to bond over something they had in common, and that was their love of dogs. So that was really the impetus for starting the dog park, and it caught on like wildfire because dog lovers are very passionate. And we had a lot of things going for us that, may make a little difference in Cleveland Heights. And we had a space, some of the things you're mentioning, we had a good space where we could keep it, where we could put it on city-owned land. It was away from houses, so we didn't have issues of that sort. But once it took off, it's just been growing. And at one point, Derek's not here. We have, I think, more members of the dog park than we had for our city pool.
Wow.
Because so many people joined, and it just kept growing and growing. And it's one of our most popular amenities now. In fact, when we first put it in, I think you had asked about, I would notice that realtors were putting in the ads for homes in the area, close access to the dog park. So they knew that, whether it helped, home values or not, it certainly was something that was appealing to attracting people to the city. Also a good way for new residents to, that move to the city. I've since learned to meet other residents by bringing their dog, and then they meet a way to kind of get acclimated to the city and meet other people. So it's really a community engagement effort as much as it was just about the dogs. I mean, I can go on and will if you want me to about the benefits to the dogs as well, but it's really for the residents of the city who really appreciate the amenity.
Wow, that's very interesting. That's one thing I hadn't thought about, that a dog park would actually invite more people to come into your city, and it's a good way to attract people for real estate. I never even thought of that as a advertising piece.
I mean, honestly, it wasn't one of the reasons I thought about it, but we sort of laughed, and I did see the realtors immediately pick up on that and start to put it in their ads.
You mentioned membership. So there's a membership to your dog park?
Yes, you do have to join, and the reason for that, and we had gotten a little bit of flack early on from a few residents who said, why don't we have it open to everybody, sort of like we do with the playground that we just instituted, open to everyone in the city. The reason for that is because we do require vaccinations, proof of vaccination. We have key fobs for people to enter the park. We have security cameras on the park. So we wanted to certainly be a safe and welcoming environment, so we couldn't open it up to, the entire city.
Right. Oh, okay. So is there a membership fee?
There is a membership fee, and Derek should be here, I believe. Is it 50 this year? Yeah, it's gone up a little bit. It's 50 there. It basically covers the cost of the fob.
Okay.
To enter and exit.
And that's a year, 50 a year?
50 a year.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then you have to show, again, proof of vaccination each year.
Okay. And how does the residents do that? Is that online or?
They can, I think, do it online or in City Hall.
Oh, okay.
In person or online.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Some of them, I mean, do they do it? I say, and facts, yeah. I mean, a lot of people probably do it along with their proof of vaccination because you have to show the vaccination every year.
Okay, great. Any questions? No?
Sounds wonderful.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much. I appreciate that. I love the idea that you created that, and you're getting a lot of the residents to participate and be a part of it.
Right. And we use it, I mean, also to, and we've been expanding it as ways of having other events there. You know, we have,
Oh, really?
which is, again, I mean, Derek was here, I can read some saying, we have a yappy hour. We have all sorts of events that people that don't have to have dogs for necessarily can come to and enjoy, you know, either in the dog park or around the dog park area. Which is a way of getting people that don't have dogs. A lot of kids, for example, or a lot of, you know, seniors who don't have dogs but love dogs or love the environment will come to these events that we have that are focused around the dog park, but you don't necessarily have to be a dog owner to do it.
Yeah. Dog park events, isn't that something? That's nice. That's
Yeah, no,
very
it's-
nice.
It's great.
I know.
And also, I mean, you haven't asked
very-
about cost. I think the turf, if you're going to get into that, that was at our first public hearing, there was a lot of discussion back and forth because the turf was expensive. I absolutely think it was the best thing that we could have done. I mean, there's the upfront cost that you don't have when you just have grass or some other things, but the ongoing cost is minimal. And it makes it really a year-round environment. So dogs are there in the coldest days of winter, hottest days of summer. There's no dirt, there's no fuss, there's minimal upkeep that our public services, public works department can maintain. But it really makes it for a really clean environment and that year-round environment. So it can be pouring rain, and there are crazy people that are out there playing with their dogs in the rain and don't have to worry about mud and things like that. So there was an initial upfront cost. But I know our department looked a lot into the benefits of the turf and decided it was the way to go because this is infrastructure. It's going to be there forever.
Okay.
So we didn't want to be sort of pound wise, penny foolish, and thought it was a good investment.
But you recommend turf?
Absolutely
versus
would recommend the
grass or
turf.
anything else? Okay.
Yeah. And again, I know you have some vets here, but I think we looked, talked to a number of vets as well as the pros and cons of using the turf and environmental issues and things like that. And we absolutely decided that was the way to go and worth the money that we spent on it.
Okay. Thank you so much. Well, I appreciate the information and the help. Okay. So now we're going to have Frank. Would you come forward too?
I'm subbing for my boss, so.
Okay. You can give us your title.
Okay, I'm the recreation manager at the city of Beechwood. I've been there for 24 years.
Oh, wow.
So I've seen a lot of projects. I work with Barb a lot on stuff. Obviously, her passion was the dog park. Kind of just piggybacking off her, it is a community. Like she said, you meet people from the other side of town that you wouldn't have had the chance to meet before because of the proximity of where you lived and stuff like that. You could ask me some questions more just because I work in the city every day. I mean, obviously the fees. We're very strict on the vaccinations every year because your fob will be turned off. It automatically turns off a year. It expires a year after you activate it. So you have to come in every year. A lot of residents aren't happy about that, but it's a safety concern, obviously. To kind of go off tangent, the turf also is another safety concern. We get it sanitized every other year. The company that did it for us comes and does it for us. Pretty cheap. Another thing I don't think Barb told you is we saved some money. We did the labor all in-house with our service department,
Oh, really?
my department. Marty Horowitz was out there. So our old mayor was out there doing it.
The whole dog park?
Yeah, we did we did all the laying. I mean, we had the company there like stitching it, but we rolled everything. We graded it in our in-house, stuff like that, with our public works departments like that.
Okay.
Obviously the cameras are hugely recommended because once again, the safety aspect. My boss, Derek, he's a stickler on if there's a dog interaction. We got cameras on our computers and he'll rectify. Right, I mean, he's taking a lot of people's fobs away from them. So, like you said, our number one concern is safety.
Okay.
And like Barb mentioned, it's away from. There's no houses around there. It's in our park, and we do have water. The key fob thing is great. We do have the large side and the small side, and sometimes we do catch people. People will call us saying, this guy let his neighbor in. So once again, we'll call and say, this is a warning. Next time, we're going to revoke your pass. So
I did prepare a few questions, and I gave to Addie, and I'm just going to let Addie kind of go through the list, and maybe you can
My
answer.
best, yeah.
You can answer some of those questions that I prepared.
So quite a few of these you've already answered, so I'll kind of just go touch on the ones that you maybe haven't gotten into. Let's see, what amenities and features have proven the most popular or beneficial? And were there any features you initially included that didn't work out as planned?
The only thing that the big positive one is shade shelters there. A lot of people, even at the playground, they want a lot of shade. As Derek mentioned in that email, I think everything else was fine. We have umbrellas, and then we have shade structures up there as well, so.
And then what has your strategy been for funding, and did you receive any support from sponsors, grants, or volunteers?
At that point, our council didn't want to take any sponsorships. Do you remember that?
See my questions.
Yeah, I think she could talk about that because she,
So we have other opportunities. I think there are opportunities for sponsors, pet stores and things of that sort. What we've done is have a number of the residents have contributed every year, the people that actually use it in addition to their fees. So you can buy a plaque, for example, in memory of your pet. In the shape of a dog bone, and we keep it kind of against the fence. We had talked about putting pavers at some point, so I think we've decided that that's a better way to go than have sort of one entity and kind of have naming rights or something of that sort. Although that is certainly an option, we decided to not go that way, but rather for these ongoing things. And people will, residents donate fairly often, just to the fund itself, or because for something particular they want, they want a water fountain, the resident might donate for that. But the things like the naming rights and things like that, or rather on small amounts, is been proven to be pretty popular.
It seems like having a memory of your pet on a stone or brick or.
Exactly,
whatever
and some
Yeah.
paving stone or something on the fence or something of that
Yeah.
sort, or on maybe even a structure there that could be changed periodically, I think are a lot of ways to raise funds for the people that use it the most.
Okay.
Also, from a social, I'm just going to throw in standpoint, a number of dog owners have become friends outside the park for breeds. So they've met people at the dog park, and then they take that meeting and they meet offsite for coffee and things like that. Again, it goes beyond just the fencing of the dog park itself to well into the community overall.
The only other question that I think wasn't really covered, you guys talked a little bit about the maintenance being minimal, but what exactly is involved in that maintenance?
we have the dog bags all around the park. Obviously, the people pick up off from their, curb their dog. And we have our service department up there every morning just cleaning up, because there are people that still are disrespectful in the park.
And again, the residents themselves are pretty, dog owners. I mean, they watch, so they kind of, they police themselves, when they're in the park, and as well as the fact that everyone knows that we have the security cameras, on the park.
Are there rules posted
Yes.
publicly so everyone can see what the rules are before they go in? Okay. Okay, that'd be great. That'd be great. Yes, President Cook.
I have a couple of quick questions and then one maybe a little deeper. How many residents in Beechwood? 10,000? Something. 12,000? Okay. And how many dog park passes do you?
I think close to 500 members.
Okay, about 500. So, okay.
Some of those are
I
household.
get that out. And how did you, and this is for the former councilwoman, so this was your idea, right? So how did you get the administration on board when you said, okay, we want to do this? I mean, I assume you got council on board, but.
Didn't have much, because it was such a brilliant idea that we really didn't get, honestly, we didn't get pushback. I mean, there was a little bit of back and forth over the cost.
Okay.
I mean, I think residents and everyone was just right on board, realized, I'm not paying myself, it was just a great idea. It wasn't brilliant. It was this great idea that we could use, and that everyone really, we had, I think, would you say maybe 80 people that showed up at our first public hearing, just about everyone in support of it. So it was not at all difficult to convince them.
I'm glad to hear that. And when you
Again, it's
picked
your
a location,
finances, so there's a financial piece to it, and
yeah.
it was really the turf and could we afford it, and we
And when
didn't
you
have much
picked a location, did you, I don't know where your dog park is, but is it in the center of the city?
Yes,
or-
we looked at two locations. There were one or two council people that wanted us to look at a second one. There was the one that was fairly obvious. It's in the Shaker median where there's already trails. And so we had some wetlands type, not wetlands, but space, kind of swampy type space. And it was
Yeah.
open enough and large enough to have it. There was a parking lot close by, so it was a short walk.
I see.
So it's in that median, so the houses, wouldn't hear any noise. They did talk briefly. One person wanted us to look at a place near the pool and the basketball
I know
court,
where that is.
which I immediately thought was a ridiculous idea because you don't want dogs barking while the kids are swimming and, all that noise and activity. This was in a quieter area, so it was pretty ideal.
Thank you.
That's it, President Cook?
That's it for me.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, both of you. Some good information we're learning today, definitely. Okay, thank you, Frank, so very much for participating. So now we'll have Daniel. And Daniel, you can introduce yourself from South Euclid Lyndhurst,
South Euclid.
or South Euclid, sorry.
Director of Parks and Recreation. How you doing? Happy to be here. Happy to talk about parks.
Well, tell us about South Euclid's Dog Park
Sure.
and how did it come about?
So Keith Benjamin's here, also with the city of South Euclid. He was instrumental with Sonny Simon, our county council member, to bring the dog park into fruition. It was a volunteer-led effort. FIDO was an organization of 501c3 corporation that led the charge for the creation of the dog park. So it started off initially in the residents' hand. Over time, they disbanded in 2011. Those assets went to our CDC, One South Euclid. So we do have support from our current CDC for the dog park. But in reality, as it is now with my department, we oversee the maintenance and funding of the park itself. So it transitioned over time, but we still have a great support from the residents to maintain the dog park, to help with the upkeep, plan for events. We recently had a longtime patron pass away, and we're going to be have a dedication ceremony next year. So there's still a lot of love and affection for this park. But recently, thanks to a CDSG grant, we were able to upgrade the park. Previously, had aging infrastructure with chain link fence. The stone aggregate was all but gone and was very muddy. So we were able to utilize those funds to redo the fence completely. So wooden fence with wiring next to it, so obviously dogs can't get through. A new water feature, improved entrance. We always had a small dog area and a large dog area. That remains. And then we were able to spend some money on signage and then improved agility equipment inside the park.
Improve what?
Agility equipment.
Okay.
So little tabletops, ramps that the dogs can run on. So maintenance-wise, I have a staff member there Monday through Friday who checks the trash, make sure it's emptied. We make sure that there are bags out for residents and patrons to use. And if there's any large deposits on the ground, we'll pick them up. So it hasn't been an issue because it really started as a grassroots effort by the residents, and they've continued that throughout since 2006 when it started. So we have a very old dog park, but recently it looks very good, and I invite everybody to come out and take a look.
Thank you. Ed, you want to pose some of those questions to Daniel for me, please?
So I believe you guys do not have turf. So can you talk about a little bit about how you guys chose the option that you went with instead of turf like Beechwood has?
I can't speak to originally. I would assume it was just a cost-effective measure, but we found stone aggregate effective when we did the recent update. Obviously, we take it down a certain level, put in a weed barrier, and then different stone aggregate on top of it. We've had a lot of compliments about it. Most people like it. They like that it's drains well, isn't muddy, and it's easy on the dog's paws because we're just talking about small stone, construction stone.
And then just talk a little bit about the amenities that you have and any that didn't work out that you've removed or any that you've added.
So since the update, we haven't removed anything. Kirby Built is a company that we purchased a lot of the equipment from. So they have a whole category just specifically for dog parks. We do have the tables, ramps. We have a water feature with a water bowl that we have at the park. So the amenities, besides what's meant for dogs, we have picnic tables and benches as well. And of course, fire hydrants for them to relieve themselves.
And I know that you guys don't have a membership, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, it's in a public park, Quarry Park North, at the intersection of Monticello and Belvoir, right at the border with Cleveland Heights. And it's a public park. It's difficult for us because we don't have electricity nearby to run a secure fencing system. It wasn't in the budget then, it's not in the budget now. We haven't had any issues. Very low incident rate. We have the signs posted with rules. They're mostly observed. And it's really just comes down to the patrons being vocal, letting somebody know if something's wrong. Occasionally I'll get an email, but for a dog park that's been around for 20 some years, very, very low incident rate.
How do you deal with the immunizations for the dogs?
We don't regulate that. It's obviously on our policy and procedures that's posted at the park. But we weren't in the position to do some type of admitted system. Keeping track of that information would be a bit of a bureaucratic nightmare for us. So it's on the honor system. Obviously, any incident, whether it happens inside a dog park, outside the dog park, walking up to our park, that's a matter for the police. And if it's found out that somebody doesn't have a dog vaccinated, they have bigger issues for themselves than just that. But like I said, everybody respects the park really well. They love the park. When it was shut down for construction, I heard from a lot of people about when it was going to be open. So there's a lot of love and affection for the park, and that extends to the pets themselves.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate you coming.
Absolutely.
And giving us the information regarding South Euclid Park. And I apologize, I always say South Euclid-Lyndhurst because I work
school district.
I work for the school district and it's both South Euclid-Lyndhurst and it's just automatic.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so very much. And now we're going to have the mayor.
Good evening. Keith Benjamin, mayor of the Village of Bracknell. And it's humbling to be in a room where I spent a decade, a little bit more a decade of my life. And my office was just down the hall here. And so it's an honor. It's my hometown. I'm a Heights Tiger, born and bred. So it's always great coming back to Cleveland Heights. In my career in government, I've had the opportunity to oversee the opening of 2 dog parks. The first one was the Lakewood Dog Park when I worked for Mayor Madeleine Kane back in the early 2000s. And that was the first dog park in the entire region to open. And then I was honored just a few years later when I moved over to South Euclid to work with Mayor Wheelo and then Councilwoman, now County Councilwoman Sunny Simon, and a group of very passionate residents who wanted a place to congregate, for not only dogs to get together and play, but for people to get together and know each other. And I know our representative from Beechwood talked a little bit about that tonight, but that is such an important component of dog parks. Our residents getting to know each other, and their dogs as well. So it's a welcoming place. It's a place, instead of taking kids to a playground and getting to know the parents, you take your dog to the dog park and you get to know your neighbors. So it's a great way to bring people together. Now with the Bracknell Dog Park, Bracknell Dog Park was there before I became mayor and before I served on council in Bracknell. It's been there for at least 15 years. I call it a sort of a passive park. It's more of a natural park. It's about an acre, so it's very big. It is natural grass turf. So while most of the time it's fine, when it does rain, habitually rain, it will get muddy. And at those periods of times, there are some residents who will still bring their dogs to the dog park, even if it's muddy. There is water on site for the dogs. There also is a hose on site if you need to clean off their paws. We have some amenities like dog pools that are available and tables and chairs for people to sit at and picnic benches as well. The great thing about the location of our dog park is that it's naturally shaded. So there's a lot of trees, and a lot of leaves, and a lot of places for dogs to go and for people to stay out of the sun on the hot days. Some things that I've learned over the years in working with dog parks is, number one, size. It's got to be big enough to accommodate enough dogs and people at the same time. The second one is location, preferably not choosing a location that adjoins a lot of residential properties. In Bracknell, the dog park does border some homes on Lakeshore Boulevard. We don't receive a lot of complaints, but we have received some complaints about dogs barking, especially when they get excited. I think overall, for those of you who have visited dog parks, most of the time the dogs are pretty pleasant. They don't usually bark all that much. But of course, it does happen on occasion. Bless you.
Bless you.
Amenities, play features, making sure that there's water, making sure that there's shade, there's trees would be preferable. Safety. The Lakewood Dog Park is open to any resident. The South Euclid Dog Park is open to any resident, and the Bracknell Dog Park is open to any resident. There are some residents and users of our dog park who are concerned about safety, and they have brought up the topic of going to a key fob system, a security system like Beechwood has. So we're just beginning our journey and looking at that. The issue that we have is the location of the dog park and how far it is from electricity, which is the same issue that we have over at Quarry Park with the South Euclid Dog Park. But again, it's very much self-policing. If there are any issues, our police department is literally just yards away, and the police are there in minutes. But again, we've not had any issues since I've been a member of council, and then when I became mayor, we've not had any issues in Bracknell. One thing I will note that is a positive about locating a dog park in another park and near youth activities is that specifically at Quarry Park, before the dog park was built, there were playgrounds and ball fields, and sometimes, not all the time, but on occasion, there were some issues with youth and usually young teens in the parks. Since the South Euclid Dog Park was located, most of those issues have gone away because there's always an adult presence with people bringing their dogs to the dog park. So there are not nearly as many issues with youth and teens since the dog park was built versus before it. So that's been a plus. And then secondly, it's a regional amenity. When the South Euclid Dog Park was closed for construction, I saw so many of South Euclid neighbors down in Bracknell using the Bracknell Dog Park. It's the same way in South Euclid. South Euclid, when the dog park was built, actually, many Cleveland Heights residents supported FIDO, the organization that raised the money. The South Euclid Dog Park was built with $20,000, all raised by the FIDO group. You couldn't do that today. It's much more expensive today than it was back in 1995 when we were, 2005 when we were raising those funds. But it's a great way to bring people together. It's a regional amenity. I know when we first opened the South Euclid Dog Park, even Cleveland Heights and Mayor Kelly at the time and Bob Downey, the city manager, did help contribute because so many Cleveland Heights residents were using the dog park. Did help contribute. I think they helped buy some of the dog waste bags and things like that for us. So it's overall, it's been a great experience. We highly recommend them in our communities.
Is there any, what is the stress level for your staff as far as maintaining and operating the dog park?
It's maintaining our dog park because it's natural. There's not a lot of maintenance. Obviously, there's maintenance involved, after a muddy season, and making sure trying to plant grass is always an issue. So at some point in the future, we may look to a turf or a crushed gravel type surface if we get to that point. But we've been lucky enough to have a pretty sturdy grass surface there. Maintenance of the fence, probably every 10 to 15 years. There's always ongoing maintenance to fences, but, probably every 15 to 20 years, you're looking at replacing, fence and upgrading the fence. Any amenities on site, generally after several years out in the weather, just like any other amenity that you would have in your parks, on playgrounds, just like slides and swings and things like that. After 10 or 15 years from wear and tear, those things need to be replaced as well.
And yeah, because I was looking at maybe, and nowadays we have a shortage of staff. And I just didn't want to put an additional burden on our staff. And so I wanted to make sure that we were not doing that if we moved forward with the dog park. And if so, what type of extra burden would that put on the staff?
Absolutely, probably the largest burden is just the cleanup of the waste.
Okay.
Usually visitors to dog parks self-police themselves, and they're very good. So most of the time, there's not a lot of excess cleanup that has to happen at the park. And if there is, maintenance staff does take care of that. But, generally, obviously, making sure that waste receptacles are emptied on if not daily, on a every other day basis. Things like that, making sure there are dog bags, receptacles, and stations available.
And immunization, did you talk about that?
So, yes. So immunization is part of our ordinance governing the dog parks. Dogs must be registered with the county. They must be immunized and have all of their vaccines, the same as in South Euclid, the same as in Beechwood. The only difference is obviously we don't have a closed dog park. It's open to anyone. So, it is self-regulating. But obviously if there is an issue at a park and, another dog or a person gets bit, or there's another issue and the dog is not vaccinated or not registered, then we can take some legal action.
Okay. Great, thank you. Did I miss anything, Addie, from my questions I created? Okay, well, thank you so much, Mayor. I appreciate you
pleasure.
coming and participating and adding to the conversation.
Happy to be here. Thanks
you.
for having us.
And for our final guests, we have Dr. Scott Smith. You want to come forward and introduce yourself and
Hello, thank you for the invitation, Council, to talk about dog health at dog parks, which I think is really what has been asked of me.
yes.
I like that the idea of dog parks do require some immunizations. I think that's vital. Anytime when we have dogs congregate in an area, the risk to residents and the risk to the dogs themselves really comes from unvaccinated or unhealthy dogs. And I think having a standard of care that outlines some of the immunizations is very important. And those immunizations, they're primarily for dog-specific diseases of what dogs can transfer to other dogs. But what I want to remind everybody about is that those immunizations are also minimizing or eliminating the risk of zoonotic diseases, which are diseases that animals or pets can transfer to people. and particularly children, particularly people of immune compromised status. And it's very important to remember that the immunizations are part of that zoonotic control, but also as parasite prevention. Dogs should receive a strategy for parasite prevention and treatment, and I think that needs to be really monitored. The reason why I say that is, as I hear more about the aggregates used and the material for turf, I think there's some consideration about synthetic materials versus organic. So anytime that we're going to have water, or we're going to have grass, or we're going to have soil, that's organic material for microorganisms to grow. So the idea of entertaining turf is certainly a good one. The idea of having a communal water station is needed, and so is shade. But the introduction of that needed organic material in how you design the park, that's where parasite prevention is very important. I think that with some of the strategies that I've heard, self-policing dog owners in a dog park, my idea would be, I think there needs to be some regulation perhaps on a dog's demeanor, and maybe, an evaluation or some type of certification, not just of immunization and parasite prevention, but of behavioral history. So that would be one thing that I would say if dogs have had interactions or there's been reports filed of dog bites or dog biting people, I think that needs to be the third tier of inclusiveness in terms of immunization, parasite control, and any demeanor history reports. I think that when people like to find the comfort and safety of a dog park, there's some concern about that, about what about, those are people in the park. So what about the people surrounding the park? If you have vaccinated dogs and you have dogs that are on parasite prevention, the likelihood of them spreading any zoonotic disease or flooding out of that park is very minimal.
Oh.
It's perhaps when those regulations aren't in place that you would have that spread. And I want to remind everybody that wild animals carry more zoonotic diseases than our household pets. That's actually where our pets develop these zoonotic diseases. They're typically spread from wildlife. So it's important to realize that the residents in the communities, if they're worried about dog park and disease spread from dogs, I think the bigger issue is just general life occurrence of wild animals, diseases such as Lyme disease, such as leptospirosis, and such as things like mites. Those are all in the environment where people may garden or may hike. And I think that residents in the area shouldn't be alerted to taking any more precautions for a dog park in the area for their health than they would for just general outdoor recreation.
Okay. Wow. Very comprehensive. Any questions?
Yeah, sure. Are we going to try to address the urination problem?
I was going to
Okay.
ask him about the urination. That was some of the questions from the previous public hearing, far as dog urine being transmitted within the ground and having some type of toxicity to adults or children being spread. What is your thought on that?
Healthy dog's urine is a sterile environment. So there are no microorganisms in a healthy dog's urine. The dilution factor of whatever earth, organic material, or aggregate we use it's likely to dilute out any potential organisms that may be in the urine. And particularly that is going to be leptospirosis.
Okay.
And leptospirosis, people, that's a zoonotic disease. That's probably one that, without maybe residents saying, that's one they're worried about. What's in the dog's urine? That is a bacteria, a certain type of complex bacteria called the spirochete, but it's spread in the urine, and it's spread in the urine of unvaccinated dogs. But it is extremely high concentration in the urine of raccoons, skunks, possum, and deer. Considerably higher than dogs. So I think that concern really would be mitigated with just the environment that we live in, you know, an environmentally rich environment of wildlife and greenery and scenery. And I don't believe that a dog park would contribute to that significantly.
Oh, that's perfect answer. Do you have any questions?
That was my main concern,
Yeah.
because I think there was some intimation that, from one of the residents, that this would get even into groundwater and so forth, and then transmit, you know, beyond that area. But I don't know anything about this. And
I think it would be very unusual. Yeah, I think it would be, as long as the health, maintenance, and preventive care strategies were in place.
Are there basic immunization for dogs?
There
Maybe
are.
you know where people just do the basic and there's maybe a upscale to it.
There are, and, you know, the representatives from other communities who've designed dog parks, you know, I'd be curious to see the similarities in their recommendations. But there are some basic immunizations that should be given. And again, it's for the dog's health and the zoonotic diseases. And I can comment on those if you
Yes,
like.
please.
Okay. A rabies immunization is required by the county. Rabies is a zoonotic disease and dogs must be vaccinated. They typically will receive a certificate that will be also recorded on the dog license. And that rabies certificate comes with a visual tag that should be displayed on the dog's collar. I always encourage dog owners to take a picture of that. We always double record the tag number, but you'll never get your tag back if you lose it. The tag has to be reissued. So rabies vaccine should be required. We talked about the zoonotic diseases of leptospirosis. That should be a required vaccination for dogs. Lyme disease vaccination combined with tick prevention are the two ways that we control the spread of Lyme disease, which is spread by a deer tick. So for me in a dog park, a Lyme vaccination should be a requirement. Because if a dog is at the dog park where deer are, and it's a nice green area and it's open space, and if there's water, I can guarantee that white-tailed deer will investigate these areas, even if there's a fence. Deer are curious. They will jump fence, they'll be attracted to the water. They love flat ground, they love edges, they love any landscape we put up. So Lyme vaccination would be required. Parvovirus is a virus that dogs carry, and by dogs, I mean the canine virus. Parvo.
Parvo.
The P, parvovirus. That's spread by any canine species. It could be a fox or a coyote or our domesticated dogs. And parvovirus, that needs to be a required vaccination as well. Distemper virus is another virus that it's specific to dogs, and so is parvovirus. It's specific to the canine family. That should be a required vaccination. And most vaccinations are going to be comprehensive and combined with the distemper and parvovirus. Most are going to be combined with leptospirosis, and some can be combined with Lyme vaccines. And there are different ways to administer those, and we prefer to use a combination vaccine that combines them together. Parasite prevention, definitely we need to be aware that dogs spread intestinal parasites in their stool, and using a prevention for that is a very good measure to take, along with flea and tick prevention. And I think when these measures are set, and again, you know, I'm not too familiar on how to control this, I think that the support, the community support, and the resident support of the dog park, I think people feel more comfortable. I think the demeanor aspect helps with dog-to-dog interactions that may occur, maybe things such as bite wounds or scratches. I think that needs to be, part of the owner's responsibility. And I did hear that, along with picking up waste, which is a priority, I think there needs to be some, monitoring of dogs' demeanor in the play area.
All right. Wow, you've given us an awful lot.
This is a lot of good information.
Yes, it is. And, a lot of our residents was concerned with the environmental state of having a dog park. And it wasn't a lot, just one or two.
A few.
Yeah, and so that's why I really wanted to dig into this a little bit more and bring in more experts who've had dog parks or who have dog parks in their city, and also to get a veterinarian to come in and really give us the real true details, because none of us are
Sure.
veterinarians.
And I'd also like to add that, every day in our hospital, I'm asked, where can I take my dog? Where's the nearest dog park? And we're right down the road. And I think with all the residential properties that are being developed in Cleveland Heights, I'm going to be asked that question more and more. And there's only so often I can say, Lakewood and Beechwood and South Euclid and, everywhere that our residents kind of want to stay here. And there is an ordinance, of course, for dogs can't be off leash in a public area. Well, that works great. We have a lot of dogs that are walked on streets in different areas, but if your dog is in your yard, you're not falling under the ordinance of being required for leash activities. So when you're on the sidewalk and in public, you're on a leash, and the majority of our dog interactions are happening from someone's front yard to a sidewalk as someone walks their dog by. And I think that people would feel better in a dog park. I think that protection and that unification of habits and interests would be there. And the most important thing about dog parks for me is that I'm taking care of patients that are part of a family, that are part of people. And if your dog is healthy and your dog is enriched, that enriches the life of people. So although we call this a dog park, I love the idea about events at the dog park and different activities, because that's just another added benefit to the community that apparently realtors have capitalized on or thought about. But healthy pets keep family members healthy. And I think that's the most important part about the dog park.
And animals are a great asset for our seniors as they begin to age in place, and to be able to have a pet that they can cuddle and walk and, especially when they are alone.
Yes.
This is very, very helpful for them.
Well, one other immunization I forgot to mention is Bordetella. That's typically a respiratory condition, Bordetella. And that is a requirement anywhere where dogs congregate. It's a vaccination typically for one type of bacteria, but it has cross-protective measures for an upper respiratory virus that used to be given as an injectable vaccination, but we found that wasn't adequate. Wasn't really supported by studies. So using a Bordetella vaccine for respiratory disease is very important. And that's a dog-to-dog disease. So I think we covered dog-to-dog diseases, dog-to-people diseases, wildlife-to-dog diseases, and wildlife-to-people diseases, which I think that last part, wildlife-to-people diseases, that's already present in our neighborhood. And that's a much larger component than having a dog park.
Well, thank you so very
Thank you.
much. You have eased my mind, and I'm quite sure when the public views this public hearing, they will feel at ease as well regarding having a dog park. I don't have a dog, but I do know a lot. Addie has a dog, and a lot of people in Cleveland Heights have a dog. When I was the chair of Parks and Recs, they were coming every day, all the times, to all the meetings and asking about a dog park, as well as the leash. We kind of expanded that to where they can walk their dogs in the parks and everything as well. So the part of this is to actually get a dog park so their animals can have fun and get to know each other in the community and, you know, just come together as one. And I really do like the idea of having events at dog parks, even though I'm not a dog owner, but it just seems like a real nice thing to do to bring the community together. But I want to thank you all so very much for spending your time, for coming here this evening. The residents, today has been a shocking day for a lot of our residents. And so if there is nothing else, President Kuda, Addie, did I miss anything? No? All right, so at the end of this, this meeting is now adjourned. And thank you so very much for coming.